Ole Emmanuel Selassie Jah Rastafari Namah Shivay, Asinist Fire, Way of Dharma. Today we'll be having a random conversation and an introduction to nothing. Now, before we go further, please subscribe, like, and share. And I'd like you to keep an open mind throughout this conversation session. Okay? Let us start it. First, let me adjust something. And then, yes, perfecto. So, what exactly is nothing? Let's go back in time. Imagine a potential of creating everything, something which is not defined, something that doesn't have a shape or form, a formlessness, a darkness, a place of infinite potentials and infinite outcomes. Okay? So, in the beginning was darkness, and then out of the darkness came the light. The minute the darkness gave birth to the light, it gave birth to something that can be defined, something that has form, something that has a certain potential, a lifespan, a characteristic, and a destiny, basically. Whereas it was birthed from something which cannot be defined, something which has infinite potential. Before we continue, please discard a tamasic mind, discard inertia, discard pessimism, yes, being pessimistic. That's the ugliest trait you could ever have. So before I go even deeper about this, let's go back into Hinduism. We have a concept in Hinduism of sattva, rajas, and tamas. Sattva being the formlessness, the purity, and then rajas being the passionate, more inspirational force, more, yes, more, yes, it's passionate. It's, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to describe it, but it's a motivating force behind something, basically. And then there's tamas, which is inertia. So rajas would be the intensive inspiration that would lead to a burnout. It deals with mobility and all that stuff. Tamas would be inertia, slowness, dullness, ignorance, and all those lower vibration qualities. In sattva, it doesn't have a form, it's pure. It has an infinite potential of turning into anything it desires. So that's sattva. The mind and the physical body is supposed to be sattvic. It has to be flexible. It has to be able to adapt to certain changes of the environment, changes of thinking, and changes of perception and perspective, basically, which is changes of thinking. So by having a flexible mind, you can actually mold your physical into anything you want, basically. And then you can adapt to any situation and circumstances that you would come across. And then that's how we define the infinite potential using the rajas, sattvas, and tamas to give you a description, basically. So we go back to the concept of nothing. I remember making a short video about hope being a certain contributing factor to the creation of your desires, basically. So now picture this. You have the infinite potential, which is nothingness, which has no form, shape, and it's unknown, basically. It's unmanifest. Okay. How do you mold the unknown into the known? Simple. On a positive side, you would need hope. And then on the negative side, doing it unconsciously or even consciously, you would need fear. If you fear something could happen to you, you are projecting an intent, a message to the infinite nothingness, the formlessness. You're using the emotion of fear to get something that you don't want. You're projecting the fear into the unknown. It acts as a creative force for that which you do not desire. Whereas with hope, you send the intention of hope to manifest into something that you desire. So now you have the infinite formlessness, the unknown, the nothingness. The minute you brand it with a certain emotion, it becomes known. It becomes a known outcome. How do you form a known outcome into an outcome of your desire? You use hope. You hope for the desire that you want to happen. Okay? And then it also goes on into faith, basically. Faith comes from knowing, basically. It should come from knowing. You understand? Obviously, you'll have experience of molding the unknown nothingness into something of a form of that which you like. So you form and mold the unknown nothingness into your desire. It becomes a known fact that you are able to mold the unknown to your desire. And then also, when you use fear to attract that which you don't want, that which you don't desire, the fear turns the unknown formlessness into something known, which is what? Whatever you fear, whatever you don't desire. So you understand? Nothingness has an infinite potential of becoming something. It does not have any form or shape. It's formless. It can become whatever depending on the intent and emotion that you would be projecting to it. Inside of an emotion, you have an intent behind that emotion. You understand? It might be desire, it might be fear. Whatever emotion that you send out into the nothingness, it molds that nothingness according to the intent to whatever outcome that you would be anticipating, whether through fear or through hope. So, people, if you want to be able to do anything and almost everything, you have to have a flexible, optimistic mind. Okay? Because mind should represent that formlessness. You understand? Mind doesn't have a certain fixation on a certain way of thinking. Of course, only when you're acquainted with a certain form of thinking that you will have the recurring thoughts happening over time. But mind is something like, it's not something that is confined to a certain thought pattern, a certain perception and way of thinking. A mind is something whereby any thought that comes and passes through it can be acted upon. It needs to be lived vacant. You understand? A mind is something that let me see. Picture a subway station whereby people take trains to go to wherever destination that they want. You can either go to the suburbs, you can either go to the ghetto, the slums, or whatever. You can even go to your job. But the substation is not fixed upon a train which would be going to, meaning you can't describe the train according to the substation whereby it fetched the passengers. You can't say that because the train came from a substation and collected people from a substation of the ghetto, it can't go to the suburbs. You understand? So you can't use the behavior of the train or the certain destinations and circumstances of the train to define, I mean, yes, to define the journey and the destination of the passenger. So the mind is something which is not confined to a certain form of thinking. Matter of fact, the mind doesn't create thoughts basically. You basically choose whatever thought that you want to create upon, whatever thought that you need to use to create whatever that you desire, or to create whatever that you don't desire, according to fear basically. Thoughts are always there and they were always here. It's not something which can be said to have originated in somebody's mind because I think of the way of Dharma, I'm the creator of the way of Dharma. No, because I came with a form of thinking of Dharma and Vedic tradition. Now I'm the originator of Vedic tradition. I came with the Kemetic knowledge. I'm a originate. No, 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 no. This knowledge has always been there in the infinite storehouse of knowledge. So it only passes by as thought because there's too much information, and thought can either be anything. Basically, it can be positive, it can be negative. Uh, it will pass through the mind, and whichever train of thought that you choose would be your fixed way of thought, fixed perception, and way of life, basically. So the worst enemy that you could ever have is a tamasic mind. You have to keep an open mind, keep a mind whereby you are able to accept certain thoughts that might be beneficial for you, certain thoughts of change, certain thoughts of flexibility, because you really do need to be that way, because a mind and the physical body, those are the things that are always changing basically. However, the goal of sadhana and yoga is to reunite our true selves, which is in actuality nothing basically. You reunite your lower self and your higher self, that positive and negative. You are able to be whole again. You understand? Because remember I said whenever you take a certain form for coming from nothingness, let's say maybe you take a form of positivity and negativity, now you have two things that you can define that don't have any potential, that are always fighting against each other to maintain balance, of course. So now to to bypass that, to be above duality, you have to go back to the nothingness, the formlessness, which is true freedom, freedom of not doing nothing, freedom of being formless, freedom of having infinite potential, which is the true soul, the true self, and the nothingness. So with that being said, guys, keep an open mind. The biggest enemy of the human mind and the devil or the devaluer of true spirituality is in actuality a tamasic mind basically. It has its application in certain situations and circumstances, but for the most part a tamasic imbalanced mind is even detrimental to its owner basically. So that is how you would mold nothingness into something that you know. That's why I advise people to do what, to practice magic, so that they can have an experience of molding the nothingness, the formlessness, into something that they desire. just by knowing, just by hoping of for hoping and knowing for the outcome that you want, you are molding the nothingness, which is the infinite potential, into something that you want. You understand? Whenever you know that you want a certain outcome or you desire a certain outcome, you are merely giving an instruction to the formlessness. And now, because it's formless, it has infinite potential to turn into anything. It's the creator of everything and anything. It won't discriminate against you, saying that no, I won't take that form for you, because it's formless, it's not defined, it has no characteristics, and it can turn into anything and everything. So it's the creator of everything and anything in essentiality. So when they ask me, what are you? Who are you? I am nothing, because I know by simply being nothing, I have the potential of doing everything. Man of multiple skills, jack of all trades, man of 12 zodiac signs, complete soul, complete nothingness, freedom, boundless, cannot be contained, cannot be defined. Arsonist fire from the way of Dharma. Live a tamasic mind. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and join us in another discussion from the way of Dharma. I hope you enjoyed this one, and please comment in the comment section to voice out your thoughts, to ask questions on this perception of nothing. Om Namah Shivaya.